Well, welcome back everybody to another video. Y'all asked for it, and today's the day. Make a cooking video for y'all with chicken and smoked sausage gumbo. It's a beautiful day here in South Louisiana in this December, mid-December, and got the Christmas tree behind us. We watching got the Saints game rolling, and we don't know what's ever going to happen with that, but we actually got windows open, which is rare because there's only about 2 or 3 weekends here in Louisiana you can open up windows because either it's 117 degrees, or it's 90 degrees, too much humidity and stuff like that. So it was actually 80 something degrees here yesterday, and this morning it was 40 something degrees when I took the dog out. About 50 something now, but we're gonna enjoy it for this one day. It will be back to 70, 80 degrees before we know it. So we're going to start off with making a gumbo. Got these rotisserie chickens here, and I'm going to start pulling those apart. I'm going to start on this roux and do a little backstory while I'm starting. So one of the first things I want to say is this disclaimer. I can guarantee you anybody who watches this video from South Louisiana will have an issue with it. I'm sure there have been more wars and family feuds and friendships lost over gumbo recipes than anything else down here in the South. I'm sure a lot of people will agree with that. Between that, jambalaya recipes, sauce pecans recipes, and stuff like that. One thing that a lot of these guys from South Louisiana, y'all know I follow Cajun Ninja. I highly recommend his channel if y'all haven't seen it. And Stale Cracker and stuff, they tell you, you do you. And I'm going to do me. This is how I'm doing gumbo. I'm going to tell you my chicken and sausage gumbo. I've had a lot of very happy reviews on. Back when we've had parties at work and stuff like that, I was asked to bring a gumbo. I always went home with an empty pot. So to me, that's a good sign. If I was going home with a half pot full of gumbo still, that's not a good sign. I have altered it, and what you find is you learn these recipes throughout the years. What my parents taught me, what my mama taught me, as they say down here. Watching her cook, and what my papa cook, who was a baker also, he did his a little bit different also, and going to some of these hunting camps and stuff over the years, learning from some of these older guys how they do it. I've kind of just morphed all that together into my own type of gumbo, and I'm gonna share that here with y'all. So I know there will be people who say you don't have this, you don't have that, you're doing this wrong. There are many ways of doing gumbo. Some people take raw chicken, and when they first thing they do before they even make a roux is they'll add oil to this pot and they will cook down their chicken. We don't like a lot of chicken in our gumbo. We more like sausage and stuff like that in our gumbo. So I do it the easy way is I buy these rotisserie chickens here, and I will pull those chickens apart and I'll use those bones to make a stock. So we're going to get started on that also. So first thing we're going to do is to this pot is we're going to add a cup of flour with 2/3 cup of oil, and we're going to start making the roux. The first thing I want y'all to notice is we're starting this kind of late, and it's only 2:18. So y'all remember that time, because it's gonna take us good 40-50 minutes just to make this roux for your first step. So I'll be right back as we get started on that. All right, so we've let this oil start heating up a little bit. We're gonna cook this on very low fire, as we say down here. So we got this on low. And 1 cup of oil, 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of flour. And we're going to start stirring this. And one thing with a roux, if y'all have never seen a roux before, roux will burn very easily. We don't want roux to burn. When a roux gets burned, it is ruined. Roux is slow and low. And now you see why, I don't know if they have it where y'all are at, but people have created and made money on roux in a jar or roux in powder. So this is roux in powder form, and I rarely use this, but if I want to do what's called a quick gumbo, maybe I can do a video on a quick gumbo for y'all one day. This roux comes out pretty decent because you just add water to it, heat it up, and then what's about to take us 45, 50 minutes, you will see that will only take about 5 minutes. But we're doing this video the real way, and we're going to get stirring. And one thing about this roux is, even though it's on this low fire, we're going to stir this We're 4 minutes into this already, but we're just gonna keep on stirring this. And we don't want to walk away from it. The Saints game that we're watching is gonna have to wait. And we're just gonna stir this non-stop. We don't want this to burn or stick. And I'm lowering the fire even more because I don't like all that bubbling. We're just gonna let this cook down. We'll see y'all again in a little. All right, next thing we'll do, we have our roux cooking. We're still stirring, making sure it doesn't burn, doesn't stick. We got it on a very low fire. But we're gonna start taking these rotisserie chickens right here. We're gonna separate all the meat, but we're not throwing these bones away. That's some of the best parts. So I'm go ahead and start separating it. All right, so we are about 20 minutes in. This is what our roux looks like. Still stirring. You can see it's got a little browner since we last checked on it. I have also deboned all this rotisserie chicken here, but we're not throwing none of this goodness away. I'm gonna show you what we can do with that in a second. But we're gonna put this on the side for now. I don't want to put it in the refrigerator just because it is still warm. These rotisserie chickens, I had to wait on them at the grocery store. But this goodness, smokedness that's all in here is going to incorporate into our, and actually a lot of smoke this is going to be in here, but that's going to be incorporated into our stock. But we're going to start working on our stock now. So in a separate pot, I'm going to add probably 2 of these chicken stocks and some water, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. All right, so I've got 2 of the containers of chicken stock, which is a 32 ounce or quart for each container. And I'm doing another quart of water. And I'm gonna see what that kind of looks like for now. It's a little bit different than the way I'm doing it. I again picked up this from another person, and I'm trying it this way. Usually I'll just do this with water, but I'm gonna try this. But to this, I am also gonna add 1 or 2 beef bouillon cubes just to put a little bit of a beef flavor into it. And I'll be right. So we have our stock mixture that we started. Got it on high heat. 2 beef bouillon cubes. And without trying to make a complete mess, I'm not going to be able to hold the camera. We're going to put all of this goodness, everything, into this pot and see what it looks like. Now for some of y'all, this is going to be completely new. This is turkey neck. What it actually is smoked turkey neck. People make a stock out of this because these turkey necks absorb a lot of that smoke flavor when they're being smoked, and you use that for a stock, and it's going to give that stock a great smoky flavor. It's going to cook down, and don't panic. We're not putting all this in our gumbo or anything like that. Just stick around with me and you'll see what we do at the end. We're staying on top of this also. So we are 25 minutes or so into this roux, and we still have a good ways to go, but it is this nice golden color right here, and this is perfect so far. So I think me staying on top of this video with y'all has helped me, because I've burned some roux in my time also. We're just going to keep moving this around. We don't want it to burn. Again, we're on a very low heat, but our pot with our stock is on a high heat. We got our chicken on the side, and we're gonna start cutting up some sausage shortly. And my sausage assistant right here is sitting here waiting for it, and she knows. Another thing is, we do take, this was what the tray that rotisserie chicken was in. And we also gonna put that in our stock pot. So it wasn't too much juice, like I said, because these just came out, but we wanted to make sure that we added that in there. So, all right, we are 35 minutes into this roux, and we got our color coming along perfectly. I can't deny it. I'm quite proud of myself, because usually by now I've become impatient and turned it up and burning it and stuff like that, but that's a great color. I will tell you also that my chicken broth did not have enough to cover everything in this pot, so I added my other quart of chicken stock to this. So we have this covered up, enough liquid to cover everything on here, and we're going to try to get this to a boil. And now we have 2.5 pounds, about 2.5 pounds of smoked sausage from the local place that we really like. And I'm going to go ahead and start chopping this up. And my trusty sausage assistant's going to make sure I don't spill nothing on the ground, so I don't get in trouble with the wife. So I'm going to go ahead and start chopping that up, and I'll be right back. I think she approves of it. Still stirring it, staying on top of it. Still waiting for that to come to a boil. Gotta get a cover for it. Go ahead and cover it. Let's get it working. So I know that there's a lot of people watching this from around the world because of the crypto videos that I have. Y'all have joined and subscribed because of that, or it's been shared because of that. So for some of y'all who might know this already, y'all just bear with me. But one thing you know that it's a very good piece of smoked meat is, you see this pink in here, and the pink is actually a chemical reaction from the smoke into the pork. And you've seen that maybe in some barbecue shows and stuff like that, where you see the big pink ring around there and stuff like that. But this is a good piece of smoked meat. As I can attest, it's a very good piece of smoked meat. And that's my problem when I cook, because I eat my way through cooking. By the time the food's ready, I'm full. But you know, I take the ends off just because of appearance, and my puppy dog assistant appreciates that. But when you're cutting this sausage, you don't want it too thick, but you also don't want it too thin, because if you get a piece that is too thin, what happens is if this casing is broken off, then this sausage will normally fall apart while you're cooking. So that's one thing that you want to be aware of. We are still into our roux. We are 40 minutes in this roux, and we still have a good ways to go. It's coming along. I did turn up the fire. Like I said, I started getting impatient. Just a little bit, 'cause I think it should be coming on a little bit more. But we're not even at a medium. We're barely above a low medium. I also put this on a bigger burner just to try to get this to a boil faster. So, because I want this to come to boil and start simmering to get all that smoked goodness out of it and into that stock. So, go ahead and get that rolling too. I'll be back soon. All right, so we have 45 minutes in it. And as I told y'all, I'll turn up the fire just a little bit, and you can see how it's getting too dark in some spots. And that's what happens when you try to rush this. So, you know, it's still good. It's still very good. Still doing very good. I am going to back the fire down just a little bit, but we're still good. But we're 45 minutes into this, and that is boiling. So what I'm doing with this is I'm strictly turning this down to a sim, and I'm letting this sim from here on out until I'm ready for it. So keep that going. My sausage is ready, and I couldn't find it earlier, but this is what happens. See, started cutting too fast, and I broke this casing on the side. Now, there's nothing wrong with me putting this in my gumbo, just to clear that up. But this sausage will, during the boiling and cooking process and simming process, will break down and kind of fall apart, and then you'll be just left with just this outer casing. And I just don't like to peel it the way that looks. But again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's still edible, and tastes fine to me. So, still stirring our roux. We're going on 47 minutes, and this looks like it's probably going to take right at about an hour if I had to guess. Move my stock pot back to a low simmer, and we're going to go ahead and just let that simmer down. Start incorporating all that smoke goodness and stuff like that that's in there, everything from the chicken bones and all that, and we're going to make a great stock with that. And we're going to keep on stirring this. We'll come over here and check on our fantasy football team, and I still have a lot of guys that are playing tonight, so I'm not that sweating it just yet, but I am losing right now. So Saints, of course, their defense did great, but then lets me down on my fantasy side. So it is what it is. All right, we'll be back in a little bit. My dog's looking for sausage. All right, we are 1 hour into this roux, and it's a great color. I will say that. But just because I'm striving for perfection with this video and I'm not rushing it, I'm going to take a little more time, probably by at least another 5 or 10 minutes. I'd like to try to get it a little darker than this, almost a deeper chocolate color. So we're going to keep on stirring this, and I still have my pot over here simming and making sure that that's all stirred around. And keep on going. All right, we are 1 hour and 20 minutes. We are very, very, very close on this. And for the sake of moving on, I might just go ahead and start from here. But you can see how long it's taking for this roux to come in. This is going, I think it's been about an hour. So my plan is, for right now, I'm just going to turn this off. You just kind of let this sit for a little bit. You know, one thing I went back and forth on for this video is, and I hate changing it up for the video, but just sitting here watching, I'm even watching some YouTube videos just to see how people are doing it while I'm sitting here doing this for y'all. And one thing I've noticed is that, you know, some people are using chicken stock in this pot when they're making their own stock. Some people are starting with a water. And I kind of went back and forth. I've always used water. It made a decent stock, and then added the chicken stock in it to finish how much liquid I need to put in here. But for this argument, to try it out, I wanted to put just chicken stock the whole way, and then we are going to finish it off with a little bit of water towards the end. So go ahead and try it out, and that's what cooking's all about. You try it some different ways, and then if I think it's too rich when it's done, you know, there's different ways of doing it. And one thing I'm seeing on these videos also is, I keep telling y'all, people do this completely different ways. And I'm watching people put tomatoes in here. And look, I was raised, and I'm in New Orleans itself, born and raised in New Orleans. And then, you know, I live south of New Orleans now, South Louisiana, but different places in Louisiana will do different things. And some will put Creole tomatoes or tomatoes in the gumbo. And where I'm raised, and my friends and everything like that, and what I've always been around the hunting camps and stuff like that, the old timers, you won't find tomatoes in our gumbo. That's for sure. I see some people on YouTube with these big concoctions of gumbos with everything in it. And you go to any high quality restaurants, or even some of these hole-in-the-wall restaurants that's very good. And gumbos are normally split between two ways. Chicken sausage, and then seafood gumbo. You rarely are ever going to see, I don't think I've ever seen a seafood with chicken, with okra, with sausage all mixed together. I'm seeing them on these YouTube videos, and I'm not even going to click on them. But hey, if that's what you like I said, these gumbos are done completely different. And some people have a little bit of variation, some people have a lot of variation. And I've always been raised, and I have some of my grandfathers, my papa's recipes and stuff like that. I even have a book that my mom made me, and it's a bunch of his recipes that he brought down. And he has separate sausage, chicken type of gumbo type recipe that I'll use, and then a completely seafood gumbo and stuff. So I don't mix that kind of stuff, and you'll see majority of people down here are keeping those separate. So we got a great color on this, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, we're about almost an hour and a half, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next step now. All right, so we're an hour and a half into this. This has got a nice dark chocolate color. The one thing you find out about roux is the darker your roux is, then the darker your gumbo is. Nobody wants to eat a light colored gumbo, or some people call it ditch water. You want that dark color. And you know, there's ways to cheat later to achieve that, and I'm going to show y'all that, but this roux is ready to go. Now, if I was making a gumbo for a party where a lot of people would be trying my gumbo and that kind of stuff like that, I'm going to tell y'all, I wouldn't cheat on anything. I'm going to chop my bell pepper, chop my own celery, chop my own, you know, this is called the Holy Trinity in Louisiana. You got your onions and your bell pepper and some of your garlic and your celery all in here. But I would chop, if this was a party, I would chop my own onions, my own bell pepper. I would even chop celery down off the stalk. I'm not celery, even my parsley down to get it fresh as that could be. But for the video, and so I don't have to tear up and cry, I'm mixing this in, and we're using this version that's already chopped up. I'm leaving my heat on low, or my fire on low as they say down here, and I'm incorporating this in, and I'm cooking this like this for at least 15 minutes, because I want my vegetables to be as soft as possible, and I want my onions to be clear. So I'm gonna go ahead and set a timer for 15 minutes, And continue stirring this down. Check and see what football game's on right now. And if any of y'all ever seen Stale Cracker down here, he has his cooking videos and he always says while he waits he hydrates. Well, I'm not one to get completely drunk during the middle of a day. So, of course, we down south, so I'm just drinking my sweet tea while I hydrate and snack on some of this stuff. And if I don't put this sausage in soon, I don't know how much is going to be left, because every time I pass by, I'm sitting here taking bites of it. So go ahead and we'll go ahead and cook this down and be right back. With all that talking, I almost forgot, is because there's garlic already in this mixture, I'm adding one kind of a heaping tablespoon of garlic to this. If I was chopping this myself, I would put 2 heaping tablespoons, but since there is a little bit of garlic already in this container, I'm only adding 1, and I will go ahead and mix that in. And again, keep on stirring this until my 15 minutes is up. And when that 15 minutes is up, I'm going to check it. If I think it still needs to go longer and become softer, I'm going to continue cooking it down. We're not going to rush this. Okay, so our onions and stuff were done after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that. Now, some people cook this sausage down first. I don't like doing that. I put my sausage in here for 15 minutes at least, because this being smoked sausage, that will start leaching some of that smokedness out and into our roux and onions and stuff. So I'll cook this down for 15 minutes, and then now we're going to strain our chicken. So we strained it first with this more coarse strainer to get some of the bigger stuff out. And now we're using this finer strainer. And I'm double straining it. Make sure you got no little pieces and parts. That's where it's at. And we'll be using this for our chicken. Alright, so we still got this sausage cooking down. You can see the liquid on the bottom. That's that goodness coming out of the sausage. I guess that's what you want to call it. Again, I'm still doing this on a low heat. So this is medium, low, low, medium. Cooking this down. We still got half the time left on the sausage. We did 15 minutes on this. We're going to keep on going, cooking it down. Again, I just like this better because I just feel like that smokiness is coming out of that sausage into our mixture, and it's getting leached out in here instead of frying that sausage up. And to me, that kind of seals it. But again, everybody does it their own way. This is how I do it, and we'll see how it comes out. So we'll be back shortly. Alright, our 15 minutes are up on this. We want a little bit longer. You can see how the sausage is cooked down and incorporated really good with that. Also, here's my chicken stock that was double, triple strained, and there is going to be a little layer of fat. The fat, there's nothing wrong with it, because if you eat anything fried, you get the fat. But some people don't like that, so I will kind of get that together and throw that out. And then what I'll do next is I'm going to take one ladle at a time and just slowly start to kind of incorporate that, while I also kind of turn up this fire to about a medium. And I'm just going to slowly start mixing this in. And you can see all it's going to do really is just thicken up the roux that's already attached to the sausage. And you see how this moisture is gone? You don't see any moisture anymore. So I'm going to take another ladle Mix that in. I'm doing the same thing. I'm gonna mix this in where I don't want it to separate, so I'm not doing a lot of liquid at one time. You know, it's a little more tedious. I don't care. I'm taking my time. You see how it's all thick again? There's no more liquid, so it's time for another ladle. And I'm gonna continue to do this until it gets to consistency where I want to stop. All right, so I've added 2 more ladles of this stock in it. I'm gonna tell y'all, this stock smells amazing. This stock has that, you can smell all that smokiness, or smoke, whatever you want to call it, from those turkey necks, and it smells amazing. So I think I've added about 3 or 4 more ladles in this, and the consistency on this is amazing. It's got a nice thick consistency. It's smooth. This is exactly the kind of base you want to start with when you're cooking these gumbos. So it is coming together perfectly. I'm almost scared because of how perfectly it's coming out, but it's still kind of thick, so we're going to keep on adding. Keep it going. Alright, so here's another spot that I'm sure some people have issue with, but this is what I do. Is this has still got a good thick consistency, almost like red beans, for those who are familiar with red beans and rice. And I don't want it really getting any thicker than this right now. And I will let this cook for about 5 or 10 minutes just like this, and again on a medium low medium heat. And I just want this to cook down just a little bit, to kind of, before it gets too thin or anything like that, to incorporate those flavors of that, all that stuff that we put in here in the beginning that we took our time with, between the roux and the Holy Trinity, which is the onions and the bell pepper and the celery and all that stuff. So one of the old timers always told me that before you get to all this water, you want to let this cook in just for 5 or 10 minutes, just to give it a chance, not to rush it, and to let it incorporate. So in respect to him, wherever he is today, I will go ahead and do that and set a little timer just for about 5 minutes, just to let this cook, and lower this heat down a little bit. I'm cooking with this kind of pot, and one thing about this pot is I love cooking with these kind of black iron pots, but it's very hard to control the temperature. When you put this on high, it takes a good minute or two to get that heat up in here. The problem is like you see right now, once this pot gets really hot and you put it back on low, it's not as responsive as it is with some of these other pots. It takes a good minute for that heat and the fire to come down. So what I do is I like starting everything in this pot, but then eventually with the size gumbo that I'm making, I can put everything back into this pot. Or if this was for a party, I have, every home in South Louisiana really has a gumbo pot, and I would normally transfer this over to a gumbo pot. But since we're not making a very large gumbo, I'm gonna go ahead and use this pot. But let's let this cook down for 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, I actually let this come together. It's been about 10 minutes now. Been kind of messing with some computer stuff. For those who know, I'm still building a computer. I got my stuff in. So we started that, buying just a couple of parts every payday, because I know I'm the poor dad. So I got that stuff in, which is already $1,000 worth of stuff. Maybe if certain cryptos can get listed soon, I can get some more stuff. But next up is a computer case with some RAM, and then gotta get the big boy, the 4070 Ti. GPU I'm probably getting. But back to the cooking. So we're gonna go ahead and transfer this back into that bigger pot that y'all saw earlier. So I'll be right. So we are now get this in our pot, bigger pot, and we're gonna go back to incorporating this slowly. And I'm probably gonna do 2 ladles at a time just to get through this. And I'm turning this up also. And as this incorporates and comes together, I'm going to add 2 more ladles. Alright, so we have gotten through all of our chicken stock, and we got this all incorporated really good. Get our fire turned up. We want to get this to a boil, and next thing you know, now we need to put some seasonings in it. Now, out of respect for some of the OGs before me, and who I've watched a lot of videos of and stuff, they have the Cajun Ninja. He has his own seasoning, Cajun two-step, and the OG himself, Mr. Tony Chachere. And I find that even though these are all Cajun seasonings, they all taste, I'm not going to say completely different, but some have more of a hot cayenne pepper to them, spiciness. Some are more balanced. I find Two Steps, he is a more balanced. It's just a different taste. PR, Cajun Ninja is got his a little more spicy. So, it's all preference on which one you like. So I'm gonna put a little bit of all three of them in it. Now, this is usually a little thicker than I like. And again, some people don't like really thin. I don't like really thin gumbo, but this recipe actually originally calls for 4 quarts of water and chicken stock. Right now we've only put 3 in it, so I already have 3 in here of all chicken stock and a little bit of water. But what I'm doing is I'm adding about 2 more cups of water, and then at the end we're gonna add something else. But so we just added 2 quarts of water to this, and go ahead and we'll add our seasonings. So again, just to kind of balance it out, I got a ½ tablespoon here, and I'm doing a ½ tablespoon of each one of these. Now, the original recipe that I use calls for salt, and it calls for more garlic powder and stuff like that. And I'm not really adding all that because this chicken stock has salt already in it. These Cajun seasonings already have salt in them. And when I got my original recipe, you didn't have all these Cajun seasonings like this. And while I like my food super salty, that's why I'm out of shape, some people don't like it all super salty. So you can always add salt later to it. I'm also adding a teaspoon of black, and I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of ground thyme. And it looks like we're already coming to a boil, and I got 3 bay leaves. And then last but not least, this is coming to a boil. Since it's coming to a boil, I'm gonna go ahead and put my chicken, which has been in the refrigerator. So I gotta get this out. So I'm putting this back on high. We got our chicken in here. Break it up just a little bit. We don't want to stir too much because we don't break up that chicken to make it fall apart. But I could have got by with 1 chicken, but for y'all example purposes, I put 2 because that's what you probably should put. So there's 2 chickens. It looks like we got that chicken separated. I'm gonna go ahead and let this come to a boil. Alright, our gumbo's coming to a boil now. We know we have that chicken and everything in here. We got our bay leaf, we got all our seasonings and stuff. So we can load this down, and we're gonna sim this for 1 hour. Now it ain't gonna be done in 1 hour, but that's just until our next step. So we got 1 hour started. I'm gonna move this back here to this simmer section and let this sim. Alright, our 1 hour timer is up on that, and I'm giving this a stir, and then now I've started the rice, water for the rice. So with 6 minutes left on this rice, I'm going to take this gumbo, and I cannot tell you how amazing this smells, but if I see any bay leaf like this, I'm pulling that bay leaf out. Our next step is we are going with, well, the recipe calls for 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of gumbo filet. And this is the kind of stuff that you want to just sprinkle this in here and kind of fold it in here, stir it, because it will clump up. And if it's all clumped up together, and it's not really doing any good for your gumbo, you also want to make sure that this is off the fire and not really actively boiling. At least that's what I've always been told by the old timers. Alright, I'm stealing this from the Cajun Ninja, and 1 bottle of extremely cold water. And what this supposedly does is pulls everything kind of together. And he swears by it. People made fun of him the first time he did it. And I started doing this a while back. and I find it has improved everything. So our gumbo is now ready. That's what we got left on our rice, and we're about ready to plate up on this. Rice is ready, and we're gonna fluff this rice up. 20 minutes it was cooking. And I usually do instant rice, but for y'all I make real rice. And it's a little wet. We're gonna cover it back and let it sit after fluffing it up for a couple of minutes while we get ready for everything else. Well, this is the after. The fact that my family could actually eat something together, all four of us, and you got 4 empty bowls here. This gumbo came out pretty darn good. I will say it was not my best. I will change up the recipe a little bit. It did need a little salt and a little more Cajun seasoning. Once you top that off, it was actually pretty darn good. So I'm gonna change that up in the ingredients. So when you see the ingredients has a little bit more than what you see in the video, you know why. But other than that, this has a lot of chicken in it, a little more than what we cared for. But for people who like that chicken in there, it was good. A lot of that sausage is really good in there, and this came out very well. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and we'll see you back on the crypto side.